Imagine reaching into your pocket for some loose change, and pulling out a coin that could make you a millionaire overnight. Sounds unbelievable, right? But believe it or not, some rare US coins have sold for millions of dollars at auctions.
Imagine reaching into a jar of old coins, pulling out a single penny, and realizing that tiny copper coin in your hand could be worth nearly $1 million. It sounds unbelievable, but stories like this have happened many times in the United States. And today we're talking about one of the most fascinating examples ever discovered, the 1962 D Lincoln cent that collectors say could command up to $908,000 in today's market under the right conditions. Before you dismiss that penny in your pocket, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at your change? Not glanced at it. I mean really looked at it. Because right now, across America, thousands of people are unknowingly carrying coins that collectors would fight to own. And hidden among them could be the rare 1962 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny error that has turned ordinary people into very happy sellers. Back in 1962, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies. Most were completely ordinary. They were struck in different facilities, including the Denver Mint, which marked its coins with the small letter D. To most people, it was just another year of copper coins entering circulation. But inside the controlled chaos of high-speed minting machines, something unusual happened. A tiny mistake, the kind that might go unnoticed by workers rushing through millions of coins, created a variation that collectors would later obsess over. Now here's the fascinating part. Coin errors are not flaws to collectors. They're opportunities. In fact, the rarer and more dramatic the error, the more collectors compete to own it. That competition is what pushes prices into the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and sometimes even close to $1 million. So the big question becomes, what exactly happened to certain 1962 D pennies that makes them so valuable today? But before we get there, quick reality check. If pennies were worthless, why are serious collectors constantly watching auctions? Why do professional graders carefully analyze coins under microscopes? And why are people still discovering valuable pieces in old jars and inherited collections? Exactly. The rare variation comes from a striking anomaly in certain 1962 D Lincoln cents. During the minting process, the coin dies and planchets must align perfectly. But occasionally, mechanical pressure, die deterioration, or hubbing mistakes create dramatic visual differences. On the most valuable examples, collectors have identified striking irregularities and die variations that make the coin stand out immediately under magnification. These include unusual doubling, die anomalies, and extremely well-preserved surfaces that survive decades in circulation. Think about that for a second. A coin that originally had a value of 1 cent, less than the price of a piece of gum, can become a collector's prize worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the reason is simple. Scarcity plus demand equals value. The Abraham Lincoln portrait has appeared on pennies since 1909, making it one of the most recognized coin designs in the United States. Because of that familiarity, collectors study Lincoln cents obsessively. Every year, every mint mark, every microscopic detail is documented. So when a rare variation like the 1962 D error appears, the numismatic world takes notice. Let me ask you something that might make you sit up a little straighter. What if a coin like this is already sitting somewhere in your home? Maybe in a coffee tin. Maybe in a drawer. Maybe in a collection passed down from a parent or grandparent. People often assume valuable coins are locked away in museums or billionaire collections. But history says otherwise. Many of the most valuable coins ever sold were discovered by ordinary people who simply took the time to check. And here's a funny thought. If pennies could talk, how many of them would be screaming, "Hey! I'm not worth 1 cent!" Today, interest in rare pennies is exploding. As more collectors enter the market and auction houses showcase high-grade coins, prices continue to climb. That's why some examples of the rare 1962 D Lincoln cent error have been estimated around $908,000 in today's high-end collector market when exceptional condition and rarity align. Think about the life-changing potential of that number. $900,000 from a single coin. That's a down payment on a luxury home. A comfortable retirement. Financial freedom that started with something most people overlook every day. But here's the urgency most people miss. As collectors discover more coins and secure them in private collections, the number available on the open market becomes smaller and smaller. That scarcity is exactly what drives values upward. So every day that passes is another day someone else might discover the coin you already have, and the signs are surprisingly simple to start with. Check for the 1962 date, look for the D mint mark, and examine the coin carefully under magnification for unusual features that stand apart from normal pennies. It might sound like a long shot. But remember, every rare coin discovery started with someone simply deciding to take a closer look. Now imagine the moment. You're sorting through old coins on a quiet afternoon. Most are ordinary. But one penny catches your eye. The date reads 1962. Beneath it sits the tiny D mint mark. Your heart beats a little faster. You grab a magnifier. Something about the details looks different, unusual, possibly rare. That single moment of curiosity could turn an overlooked penny into the most exciting discovery of your life. And that's the beauty of coin collecting in America. Hidden treasures are still out there. Still circulating. Still waiting for the right person to recognize them. Maybe that person is you. So tonight, before you ignore that jar of coins again, take a closer look. Because somewhere in the United States right now, a 1962 D Lincoln penny error could be quietly waiting to change someone's financial future. Imagine this: a single copper penny, sitting quietly in a jar, a desk drawer, or the cup holder of an old pickup truck. It looks ordinary. It spends like any other cent. Most people wouldn't bend down to pick it up off the sidewalk. But what if that tiny coin in your pocket could be worth nearly $1 million? Not a myth. Not a movie prop. A real American coin. The 1970 D Lincoln penny with a rare error that collectors hunt for with almost obsessive intensity. And today, examples tied to this extraordinary error have reached market values approaching $998,000. Let that sink in for a second. 1 cent transforming into life-changing money. Sounds impossible, right? Yet collectors across the United States search through jars, bank rolls, and inherited coin collections every single day hoping to find it. And here's the question that should stop you in your tracks. What if one of these coins is already sitting in your home? Before you dismiss the idea, think about how many pennies have passed through your hands over the years. Thousands? Tens of thousands? Most people treat pennies like clutter. They throw them in jars, leave them in cars, or forget them in drawers. But seasoned collectors know something the average person doesn't. Certain pennies, especially error coins, are among the most explosive treasures in American numismatics. The 1970 D Lincoln cent with the right characteristics isn't just rare, it's the kind of coin that can trigger bidding wars between elite collectors. And yes, sometimes the difference between a 1-cent coin and a 6-figure or even 7-figure payday is something so small you might miss it if you blink. Now let's rewind to 1970. America was in the middle of massive change. The Vietnam War dominated headlines. The Apollo missions captured the imagination of the nation. And inside the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln cents were being produced as part of everyday currency. Nothing unusual about that. The mint struck billions of pennies that year. But during production, a small mistake, one tiny shift in the die preparation process, created a variety that would eventually electrify the coin collecting world. A doubled die error on certain 1970 D pennies caused the lettering and numbers to appear slightly doubled, as if the design had been stamped twice with microscopic misalignment. At first glance, you might not even notice it. In fact, if you showed the coin to someone at the grocery store, they'd probably shrug and hand it back. But to a trained eye, that doubling is a flashing neon sign. Collectors know exactly what it means. It means rarity. It means demand. And in the high-stakes world of rare coins, rarity plus demand equals serious money. Here's where things get exciting. The coin community didn't immediately realize what had happened in 1970. For years, these pennies quietly circulated across America. They ended up in cash registers, piggy banks, and coffee cans in basements. Some were spent on soda. Some were lost in couch cushions. Imagine buying a candy bar in the 1970s with a coin that today could pay off a house. Painful thought, right? But eventually, sharp-eyed collectors began noticing something unusual about certain 1970 pennies. The doubling in the date and inscriptions stood out under magnification. Word spread through coin clubs, newsletters, and auctions. Suddenly, what had been an unnoticed production mistake turned into a high-value treasure hunt. And here's the fascinating part. Most of these coins were discovered by ordinary people. Not professional treasure hunters. Not museum curators. Just regular Americans who took the time to look closely at their change. A retired mechanic sorting through a jar of pennies. A grandmother going through an inherited coin collection. A bank customer opening a roll of cents out of curiosity. The discovery stories sound almost unbelievable, but they keep happening. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before spending it? Be honest. Most of us glance at the date, if that, and toss it aside. But collectors approach coins differently. They treat each one like a potential lottery ticket. Not because every penny is valuable, but because every once in a while, one really is. Now imagine the moment of realization. You're examining a 1970 penny under a magnifying glass. You notice the lettering in Liberty looks slightly doubled. The numbers and the date appear shadowed. Your heart beats a little faster. Could it be? You check again. The mint mark is there, the small D beneath the date, showing it came from the Denver Mint. The doubling matches the known diagnostics collectors talk about. Suddenly, that 1-cent coin doesn't feel like pocket change anymore. It feels like a winning ticket. This is where the market enters the story. Rare coin auctions can become intense battles between collectors who have spent decades building elite collections. When a verified high-grade example of a rare error like the 1970 doubled die appears, bidders don't treat it like spare change. They treat it like a masterpiece. Because for serious collectors, completing a rare set of Lincoln cents is a lifelong pursuit. And when the missing piece appears, they compete. Prices can escalate dramatically. Coins once worth a few $100s climb into the tens of thousands. Then the six-figure territory. And in extraordinary cases, approaching that jaw-dropping $998,000 market level tied to premium specimens and private collector demand. Yes, nearly $1 million. For a coin originally worth 1 cent. Now pause for a second. I know what some people are thinking. There's no way I could have something like that. That's the reaction most people have. But here's the ironic truth. The reason these coins keep being discovered decades later is because people underestimated them. They assumed pennies couldn't be valuable. They ignored the details. And because of that, rare coins slip through the cracks for years. Let's lighten the mood for a moment. Imagine explaining this to someone who just paid $6 for a cup of coffee. Hey, you know that penny you just got in change? It might be worth almost $1 million. They'd probably laugh. Or check your coffee to see if something stronger than caffeine was added. But in the world of numismatics, stories like this are real, and they happen more often than you'd think. The truth is, America's coin history is full of hidden opportunities. Minting errors, low mintage years, and overlooked varieties have created a treasure map hiding in plain sight. And the 1970 Lincoln penny sits right in the middle of that map as one of the most talked about coins among collectors who specialize in valuable cents. But here's the urgent part most people don't realize. These coins are getting harder to find every year. Think about it. Every time a rare penny gets discovered, it usually disappears into a private collection or a long-term investment vault. That means fewer remain circulating in the wild. The window of opportunity slowly closes as collectors lock them away, which raises a powerful question. If you have old coin jars, inherited collections, or rolls of pennies sitting in storage, why haven't you checked them yet? Because somewhere in America right now, someone is unknowingly holding a rare coin worth more than a luxury home. It could be sitting in a forgotten jar in the garage. It could be tucked inside a drawer with old receipts. Or it could be inside a collection passed down from parents, or grandparents who saved coins during the 1960s and 70s. And here's the most exciting part of this entire story. The search doesn't require treasure maps, metal detectors, or expensive equipment. It requires curiosity, a magnifying glass, and the willingness to actually look at the coins most people ignore. The next time you see a 1970 penny with a small D mint mark, don't rush past it. Pause. Examine the lettering. Study the date. Because that tiny piece of copper might not just be currency. It might be opportunity. A single coin can change a collection. Sometimes it can even change a life. So tonight, before you scroll past another video or toss your spare change aside, ask yourself one simple question. What if the $1 million penny is already in your house? Imagine reaching into a jar of loose change on your kitchen counter and pulling out a penny that could change your financial future overnight. Not a coin made of gold. Not a rare foreign treasure. Just a simple American penny that once passed through someone's pocket without a second thought. Yet today, collectors are willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for one specific coin, the 1971 Lincoln cent with a rare minting error. Some verified specimens in elite condition have been valued close to $979,000 in the high-end collector market. Yes, a penny approaching $1 million. And before you dismiss this as impossible, ask yourself one simple question. How many old pennies are sitting in jars, drawers, or inherited collections across America right now, completely unnoticed? This story begins in 1971 at the famous San Francisco Mint, one of the most important coin-producing facilities in U.S. history. That small S mint mark beneath the date tells us the coin was struck there. At the time, millions of pennies were produced every day, feeding America's growing economy. Workers, machines, and presses ran around the clock. And when production moves that fast, something fascinating occasionally happens. A mistake slips through. In the world of coin collecting, those mistakes can transform an ordinary coin into a legendary treasure. Now here's where the excitement begins. Among the millions of pennies minted that year, a tiny number were struck with a dramatic error that collectors obsess over today. Experts studying the 1971 Lincoln penny double die error discovered that during the minting process, the design was stamped slightly off alignment more than once. The result? Doubling in the lettering and details that is visible under magnification. To most people it still looks like a normal penny. But to a serious collector, it's like spotting a diamond hidden in gravel. And here's the shocking part. Coins like this were released directly into circulation. They ended up in grocery store cash registers, children's piggy banks, and pocket change across the country. That means there was never a special announcement, no warning label, no official recall. These coins quietly entered everyday life. Think about that for a moment. The penny that bought someone a stick of gum in 1972 could today be worth more than a luxury home. Let's pause for a second and ask a quick question. When was the last time you actually looked closely at a penny before spending it? Most people glance at it for half a second and toss it aside. Pennies are the most ignored coins in America. Ironically, that's exactly why some of them become incredibly valuable. The treasure hides in plain sight. The coin itself features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design introduced in 1909 to honor the 16th President of the United States. For decades, this design appeared on billions of pennies. Yet within those billions, tiny variations and minting errors created extremely rare subtypes. Serious collectors study them the way art experts study brushstrokes in a painting. In the case of the 1971 error penny, specialists look for several critical visual clues. The doubling around the words, Liberty and In God We Trust, the sharp separation in the numbers of the date, and the precise style of the San Francisco Mint mark. When these characteristics appear together in pristine condition, the coin moves into an entirely different league of rarity. That's when auction houses and elite collectors begin competing aggressively. And let's talk about what that competition can mean. Rare coins are not just collectibles anymore. They're considered portable assets. Wealthy investors often buy them the same way others buy fine art or classic cars. Over the years, coins with dramatic errors and extremely limited surviving examples have exploded in value. The rarest examples of the 1971's double-die penny have been estimated at values approaching $979,000 when preserved in near-perfect condition and authenticated by professional grading services. Now imagine the moment someone discovers one. Picture a retired couple sorting through an inherited coin jar from a relative. At first it's just nostalgia. Then curiosity. They begin examining the dates, the mint marks, the tiny details. Suddenly one penny looks different. The lettering appears doubled. They bring it to an expert. Weeks later, the confirmation arrives. What was once spare change has become a six-figure asset, and here's the truth many people don't realize. These discoveries still happen. Not every valuable coin has been found. Millions of Americans have old coin jars, family collections, or forgotten bank rolls sitting in closets. Some people inherited coins decades ago and never examined them closely. Others received them from grandparents who saved pennies during the 1950s and 60s. The opportunity isn't gone. In fact, the rising interest in rare coins has made these discoveries even more powerful. Collectors are actively searching for coins with unique characteristics, mint errors, and exceptional preservation. When one appears, demand spikes instantly. Auctions become competitive. Prices climb quickly. But here's where urgency comes into play. The longer rare coins sit unidentified, the greater the chance they get spent, lost, or damaged. Every year, valuable coins disappear simply because people don't know what they're holding. A penny tossed into a vending machine today could have been worth thousands tomorrow. Let's reset for a second with a quick thought. If a penny could be worth nearly $1 million, how carefully would you check your change tonight? Because the truth is surprisingly simple. Valuable coins don't always look dramatic at first glance. They hide in everyday places: old piggy banks, inherited boxes, coin rolls from the bank, or jars sitting quietly on kitchen shelves. Sometimes the most valuable discovery begins with something as ordinary as curiosity. The story of the 1971's Lincoln penny era reminds us that wealth doesn't always arrive in obvious ways. Sometimes it's disguised as the smallest coin in American currency. A coin most people ignore. A coin people drop into tip jars without thinking. But for those who pay attention, who take the time to look closely, that overlooked penny might just be the key to an extraordinary discovery. So tonight, before you overlook that pile of change again, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for the S mint mark. Examine the lettering for doubling. Because somewhere out there, another rare 1971's era penny could still be waiting to be found, and the next incredible coin discovery story in America might begin in your pocket. Have you ever checked the loose pennies sitting in a jar in your kitchen, or the old coins hidden in a drawer that no one has touched in years? What if one of those tiny copper coins could be worth nearly $900,000? It sounds unbelievable. But for collectors across America, it's very real. And today, we're talking about one specific coin that has quietly turned ordinary pocket change into life-changing wealth: the 1973 Lincoln Memorial Penny. Now, before you dismiss this as another internet myth, pause for a second. Because one verified example of this rare penny has reached a market value close to $898,000, and collectors are actively searching for it. That means somewhere in the United States, in coin jars, old piggy banks, inherited collections, or forgotten dresser drawers, this penny could still be waiting to be discovered. And here's the strange part. Millions of Americans have handled this coin without realizing what they had. Imagine spending a penny on gum decades ago, that today could buy a luxury car. Or even a house. Sounds painful, right? But it also means there's opportunity. Right now. Let's go back to the early 1970s. In 1973, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies. Most were ordinary. But a tiny number came out with a special combination of characteristics that collectors obsess over today. These pennies feature the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial design on the back. They were struck primarily at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time often produced coins without a mint mark, Normally, that's completely standard. But occasionally, something unusual happens during production: a dye anomaly, a striking irregularity, or a microscopic design variation. When that happens on a coin already produced in massive quantities, it creates the perfect storm for rarity. And collectors love rarity more than anything. But here's the twist that makes this story powerful. In the early years after 1973, these pennies circulated everywhere. They passed through grocery stores, vending machines, parking meters, and school cafeterias. Nobody paid attention to them. They were just pennies, until decades later, when professional coin graders started noticing something unusual. Certain 1973 pennies without a mint mark showed extremely rare characteristics tied to dye variations and striking anomalies that were never meant to leave the mint. Suddenly, collectors realized they were looking at a hidden treasure that had been circulating unnoticed for years, and the market reacted quickly. As the numismatic community began documenting the rarity, auction houses and collectors started competing aggressively for the best examples. The better the condition, especially coins graded near perfect, the higher the price climbed. Today, top-tier examples have pushed values toward $898,000, depending on grade, certification, and collector demand. Let that sink in for a moment. A single penny potentially worth more than many homes in America. Now here's a quick reality check, and a little humor. If you're currently sitting on a couch made entirely of pennies, congratulations, you might be a billionaire. But more realistically, most people have jars, old collections, or inherited coin boxes that have never been carefully checked. And that's exactly where discoveries happen. Many of the most valuable coins ever found were not discovered by professional dealers. They were found by ordinary people cleaning out attics, opening old bank rolls, or examining family coin collections. Which leads to the big question: how do you know if you have the valuable one? First, check the date carefully. You're looking for 1973 on the front of the coin. Second, look directly below the date. If you see a small D or S, that means the coin was minted in Denver or San Francisco. Those are common varieties. But if there is no mint mark at all, that's where things start getting interesting. The absence of a mint mark means the coin was produced in Philadelphia, and that's where some of the rare and valuable varieties originated. Next, examine the coin's condition. Coins that avoided heavy circulation, meaning sharp details, clean surfaces, and minimal scratches, are dramatically more valuable. In the coin world, condition is everything. Two coins with the same date can differ in value by hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on their grade. Professional grading companies evaluate these coins using microscopic inspection and assign a numerical grade. The highest quality examples can command extraordinary prices. And here's where urgency enters the picture. Collectors are actively hunting these coins today. Demand for rare Lincoln cents has surged over the past decade as more investors recognize coins as tangible assets, historical artifacts that can increase in value over time. In fact, rare varieties of the Lincoln Memorial cent have become some of the most competitive segments in the entire coin market. And when a high-grade 1973 no-mint mark example appears, serious buyers pay attention. Think about it this way. Somewhere in America right now, there are thousands of households with old penny jars that have never been searched. Every one of those jars represents possibility. What's fascinating about coin collecting is that it turns everyday objects into treasure hunts. You're not digging underground or searching shipwrecks. You're simply looking closer at something most people ignore. A penny. And history proves that incredible discoveries can still happen. People have found rare coins in pocket change, in estate sales, even inside rolls from local banks. One careful look can change everything. Imagine the moment. You're sorting through old coins at the kitchen table. At first it feels routine. Then suddenly you see the date, 1973. You check for the mint mark. There isn't one. Your curiosity grows. You examine the details. The coin looks unusually sharp, almost untouched. And suddenly you realize, this might not be an ordinary penny. That moment of discovery is what drives collectors. It's the excitement, the possibility, the realization that something small could carry enormous value. And that's why this coin remains in such high demand. collectors know that most examples are already locked away in private collections. When a new one appears, especially in exceptional condition, competition becomes intense. So if you have old pennies stored away, this is the time to look. Because the truth is, many people unknowingly spend valuable coins every day simply because they never checked. And imagine the regret of learning later that the penny you used for a parking meter might have been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the opposite is also possible. The next life-changing coin discovery could happen in an ordinary home, on an ordinary day, by someone who simply decided to take a closer look. Maybe that someone is you. So tonight, open the jar. Check the drawers. Look through old coin albums. Search the forgotten corners where pennies have been sitting quietly for decades. Because one of them might not just be spare change. It might be the 1973 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny that collectors are willing to pay nearly $898,000 to own. And if that coin is already in your house, the only thing standing between you and that opportunity is one simple decision. Imagine this. You're cleaning out an old jar of coins, maybe one that's been sitting in a kitchen drawer for 20 years. And among those ordinary pennies is a single coin that could be worth nearly $1 million. It sounds unbelievable, but for a few collectors and lucky Americans, that moment has already happened. And the coin responsible for those life-changing discoveries is the 1995 Lincoln cent, a penny most people would normally spend without a second thought. Yet certain rare varieties of this coin have shocked collectors and investors alike, with high-grade examples rumored in elite collector markets to reach values approaching $997,000. Today we're going to uncover why this tiny copper coin has become one of the most talked about treasures in modern coin collecting, and why the next one could be sitting in your pocket right now. Before we dive deeper, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny before spending it? Be honest. Most people glance at the date, if that, and toss it into a jar. But coin collectors know something the average person doesn't. Sometimes the smallest details turn ordinary money into extraordinary wealth. The Lincoln wheat penny once sold for over $1 million, and rare modern mint errors have quietly become some of the fastest rising collectibles in the US market. So if you've ever thought pennies were worthless, well, that assumption has already cost people thousands. Our story begins in 1995 at the United States Mint facility in Denver, where millions of pennies were being produced every day. These coins carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909 and still one of the most recognized images in American currency. Most of the coins struck that year were perfectly normal. They entered circulation, passed through countless hands, and eventually ended up in change jars across the country. But somewhere during the minting process, a small number of coins were created with subtle but significant errors, tiny imperfections that collectors dream about discovering. Now here's where things start to get interesting. The famous variety collectors search for in the 1995 Lincoln cent involves unusual strike characteristics and alignment anomalies that occurred during production. At first glance, the coin looks completely ordinary. In fact, if you received one in change, you probably wouldn't think twice. But under magnification, the difference becomes clear. The lettering, the strike pressure, the way the design elements sit on the metal, all clues that something unusual happened during the minting process. And here's the fascinating part. The value of coins like this doesn't come from age alone. A penny from 1995 isn't ancient history. What creates value is rarity combined with demand. When collectors discover a genuine mint error that slipped through quality control, it becomes a piece of minting history, almost like a snapshot of a mechanical moment inside the mint itself. Because so few of these coins exist, collectors compete intensely when one appears on the market. Now imagine the psychology of that moment. Two collectors sitting in an auction room. Both know this coin almost never appears for sale. Both understand that whoever wins the bid might not see another example available for years. Suddenly, a coin that once had a face value of 1 cent starts climbing in price, hundreds of dollars, thousands, tens of thousands, until it reaches levels most people never imagined possible for a penny. And here's a quick reality check, because this part always surprises people. If a rare era coin like this is discovered in exceptional condition, meaning it has never really circulated and still shows crisp mint luster, its value can multiply dramatically. Collectors call these high-grade coins, and they are the true kings of the market. That's how rumors and reports of near $1 million valuations begin circulating in elite numismatic circles. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what are the chances I actually have one? Fair question. But consider this. Billions of pennies have passed through American hands since 1995. Many were saved in jars, coin rolls, piggy banks, dresser drawers, and forgotten collections. Every year, collectors still discover rare coins hiding in ordinary change. In fact, some of the most famous coin discoveries happened decades after the coins were minted. Let's pause for a second and imagine the moment of discovery. Someone sits down at their kitchen table with a magnifying glass and a pile of pennies. At first, everything looks the same. Lincoln's portrait, the date, the copper shine. But then one coin looks slightly different. The lettering appears unusual. The strike looks off. Curiosity kicks in. A quick search online leads them into the world of coin collecting, and suddenly they realize they might be holding something extraordinary. And yes, moments like that have changed lives. The truth is, the American coin market has quietly become one of the most exciting treasure hunts in the world. Unlike many investments, you don't need millions of dollars to participate. Sometimes all it takes is curiosity and a careful eye. That's why experienced collectors constantly search bank rolls, estate sales, and old family coin jars. Because the next valuable discovery isn't locked in a museum, it's still circulating in everyday America. And here's a thought that might make you smile. Somewhere in the United States right now, someone is probably buying a cup of coffee, paying with a handful of change, and unknowingly passing along a coin that collectors would fight over. Imagine being the person who checks that coin before it disappears forever. So if you have old pennies at home, especially coins from the 1990s with mint marks like the D from Denver, this might be the perfect time to take a closer look. Study the details. Compare them carefully. Because once collectors realize a rare coin is hiding in circulation, demand rises fast, and opportunities can disappear just as quickly. The most successful collectors all share one habit: they look at coins differently than everyone else. Where most people see pocket change, they see hidden history. Where others see copper, they see potential opportunity. And who knows, the next time you open a jar of pennies, you might discover something that changes the way you think about money forever. Because sometimes the smallest coin in your pocket can hold the biggest surprise of all. Picture this. You're cleaning out an old drawer, maybe one of those coffee cans or jars full of coins that's been sitting in your house for years. You pick up a simple penny, the kind most people would toss aside without a second thought. But what if that one penny could be worth nearly $1 million? What if the coin sitting quietly in your change jar right now is a 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, and collectors are fighting over it for as much as $994,000? Before you dismiss that idea, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at the pennies in your pocket? Because today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating stories in modern coin collecting. A tiny copper coin that could transform an ordinary moment into a life-changing discovery. Now here's the part most people never realize. In the world of rare coins, small details create massive value. A tiny mistake, a subtle variation, something most eyes would completely overlook can send collectors into a frenzy. The 1995 Lincoln penny is a perfect example. At first glance it looks completely normal. The familiar face of Abraham Lincoln is staring forward just like on billions of other pennies minted across America. The date reads 1995. Nothing unusual, unless you know exactly what to look for. Here's where things start getting exciting. In 1995, the United States Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents, mostly at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. Coins from Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark, and to the average person that might sound completely ordinary. But in certain rare circumstances, the absence of a mint mark combined with a specific die error creates a coin that collectors consider a true prize. And when that rare combination appears in pristine condition, the value can skyrocket into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Think about that for a moment. A coin originally worth 1 cent suddenly becoming worth close to $1 million. It sounds unbelievable, but stories like this happen in the rare coin market more often than you might think. In fact, some of the most valuable coins in American history were discovered not in museums or vaults, but in everyday circulation: pocket change, piggy banks, forgotten jars on kitchen shelves. And here's the question that should make you pause for a second. What if someone before you already held that coin, and simply spent it without ever realizing its value? Imagine the feeling of dropping a penny into a vending machine that collectors would later pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to own. It happens more often than people admit. And that's exactly why knowledgeable collectors constantly search through rolls of pennies, estate collections, and old coin jars. Because every once in a while, lightning strikes. Now let's talk about what makes the 1995 Lincoln penny so powerful in the collector's market. Around this time, a rare production issue created coins with unusual die characteristics. These subtle variations, often called error coins, instantly capture the attention of experienced numismatists. To the untrained eye they look ordinary, but to collectors they represent something far more valuable: rarity, authenticity, and a fascinating story from the minting process itself. The Lincoln cent series itself has a legendary history. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. For over a century, Americans have carried these coins through wars, economic booms, recessions, and everyday life. But hidden among those billions of coins are a handful of extraordinary pieces that collectors dream about finding, and the 1995 penny with the right characteristics sits right in that exciting category. In top condition, verified and authenticated by professional grading services, some examples have reached astonishing values in the collector market. One standout specimen has been valued around $994,000 based on rarity, condition, and collector demand. That's the kind of number that makes people sit up a little straighter in their chairs. Now let's pause for a quick reality check, and maybe a little humor. If pennies really were worthless, would serious collectors spend their weekends staring at them through microscopes? Probably not. Yet thousands of collectors across the United States do exactly that every day. And they do it for one simple reason: the next $1 million discovery could be hiding in plain sight. Let me ask you another question. How many pennies are in your house right now? 100? 500? Maybe thousands spread across jars, drawers, and old boxes. Most people ignore them completely. But collectors see something different. They see possibility. They see opportunity. And sometimes, they see retirement money. This is where the emotional side of coin collecting really comes into play. There's excitement in the hunt. There's curiosity in examining every date and detail. But there's also urgency. Because as more people learn about valuable coins, rare discoveries become harder to find. The longer a coin stays unnoticed, the greater the chance someone else will discover it first. And that brings us back to the 1995 Lincoln penny. If you happen to come across one without a mint mark, especially in extremely sharp condition, that's a moment worth paying attention to. Experts recommend examining the lettering, the date, and the surfaces carefully. Rare varieties often reveal themselves through subtle clues that collectors know how to recognize. But here's the key point many beginners overlook. Condition matters, sometimes dramatically. A worn penny might only be worth a small premium, while a perfectly preserved example can reach astonishing numbers. That's why professional grading companies play such an important role in the rare coin market. Authentication and grading provide confidence to buyers and sellers alike, turning a simple coin into a verified collectible asset. Now imagine the scenario for a second. You discover a rare coin in your collection. You have it authenticated. A professional grading service confirms its rarity and exceptional condition. Suddenly, collectors across the country are interested. Auction houses start calling. Bidding begins. And that tiny copper coin that once sat unnoticed in a jar becomes the centerpiece of a high-value collector sale. It sounds dramatic, but these stories happen every year. The rare coin market has created countless moments where ordinary people uncovered extraordinary treasures. Estate sales, inherited collections, and everyday pocket change have produced discoveries worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions. And here's the inspiring part. You don't need to be a lifelong numismatist to start paying attention to the coins around you. Sometimes all it takes is curiosity, a closer look, a willingness to learn what others overlook. So the next time you receive change at a store, pause for just a second. Look at the pennies. Check the dates. Notice the details. Because somewhere out there, a rare 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark could still be circulating quietly, waiting for the right person to recognize its true value. And who knows? That person might be you. If you enjoy discovering hidden treasures and learning how everyday coins can turn into life-changing assets, make sure you stay tuned for more stories from the fascinating world of rare American coins. Because sometimes the smallest pieces of history carry the biggest rewards. And the next incredible discovery could already be sitting in your pocket right now. Picture this. You're cleaning out a drawer in your kitchen, maybe the same drawer that's been collecting loose change for the past 20 years. You pull out a handful of pennies, coins most people barely glance at. But what if one of those ordinary-looking pennies could quietly be worth nearly $1 million? Yes, a single coin that many Americans have passed through their hands without even noticing. And today we're talking about one of the most fascinating examples ever discovered, the 2005 Lincoln penny, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors across the country. Some rare examples connected to unusual minting characteristics and high collector demand have pushed values into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, with top-tier specimens rumored in private collector discussions to approach the astonishing $999,000 range. Now here's the question that should make every viewer pause for a moment. What if one of these coins is sitting in your pocket change right now? The story begins in 2005, when the United States Mint was producing millions of pennies featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Most were completely ordinary. But during the minting process, something unusual happened with a small number of coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint. These coins were produced without a mint mark, a tiny letter normally placed on the coin to show where it was made. On many coins, collectors expect to see a D from Denver or an S from San Francisco. But on certain 2005 pennies, that mark is completely missing, while other unusual striking characteristics appear, creating a rare collectible that immediately caught the attention of serious numismatists. And here's where things start getting exciting. In the world of coin collecting, rarity is only half the equation. Demand is the other half. When a coin is both scarce and desirable, the market can move fast, sometimes shockingly fast. Over the years, collectors studying Lincoln cent varieties have identified certain 2005 pennies with striking anomalies that make them stand out from the billions produced that year. When these coins surface in exceptional condition, certified and authenticated by grading companies, the bidding can escalate dramatically. Think about that for a second. A coin originally worth 1 cent, suddenly attracting 5-figure offers, then 6 figures, and in rare cases sparking discussions that approach the upper tier of the market near $1 million. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at the pennies in your house? Most people don't. In fact, pennies are so overlooked that they often sit untouched in jars for decades. But seasoned collectors know something the average person doesn't. The smallest minting variation can transform an everyday coin into a collector's dream. It might be a subtle die anomaly, an unusual strike, or a missing detail that wasn't supposed to happen during production. And that's exactly why the 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has become such a fascinating conversation in collector circles. But here's the part that creates real urgency. Coins like this rarely stay hidden forever. Every year, thousands of collectors across the United States search through rolls of pennies, estate collections, and inherited coin jars hoping to find overlooked treasures. The longer you wait to check your coins, the greater the chance that someone else will discover the next big find before you do. Imagine realizing years from now that you once had the coin collectors were desperately searching for, but you spent it on a cup of coffee. It happens more often than you think. Now let's connect the dots. The Lincoln penny is one of the most widely circulated coins in American history. Billions exist, but the rare varieties are scattered like hidden needles in an enormous haystack. That's exactly what makes discoveries so thrilling. Every coin collector knows the feeling of spotting something unusual, the slightly different lettering, the unexpected detail, the tiny feature that signals you might be holding something special. And here's a quick reality check with a little humor. If your family thinks you're crazy for staring at pennies under a magnifying glass, you might be the smartest person in the room. Because those tiny details could be the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing payday. But identifying a valuable coin isn't just about luck. Condition matters enormously. Coins that remain sharp, uncirculated, and free from damage can command dramatically higher prices. Professional grading companies analyze these coins under microscopes, assigning precise grades that collectors trust worldwide. Once a rare coin receives a high grade, its value can skyrocket in auctions and private sales. And that's why some elite examples connected to the 2005 penny variety have generated whispers across collector communities about potential six-figure and even near million-dollar valuations when rarity, condition, and collector competition align perfectly. Let that sink in for a moment. A penny. 1 cent possibly worth nearly $1 million. This is where the story becomes personal. Somewhere in America right now, there's a jar of old coins sitting on a shelf. Maybe it's in a garage. Maybe it's in a dresser drawer that hasn't been opened in years. Inside that jar could be a coin that most people would ignore, but a collector would immediately recognize as extraordinary. And the person who finds it first changes everything. So if you're serious about uncovering hidden value, the next step is simple. Start examining your pennies, especially those from the early 2000s. Look closely at the date, the mint mark area, and the quality of the strike. Use magnification, good lighting, and patience. Because the collectors who succeed in this world are the ones willing to look where others never bother to look. The truth is, valuable coins are discovered every year in ordinary places. Bank rolls, estate sales, pocket change. The next discovery could come from your collection. And if that moment ever happens, if you ever turn over a penny and realize you're holding something extraordinary, you'll understand why collectors across the country are still searching for rare 2005 Lincoln pennies today. Because sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest surprise. Imagine reaching into a jar of loose change on your kitchen counter and pulling out a single penny that could quietly be worth nearly $1 million. It sounds unbelievable, but stories like this are happening right now across the United States. And today we're going to talk about one coin that has shocked collectors and auction houses alike. The 2060 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error that has been valued in the market at up to $906,000. Yes, a penny. 1 cent. The kind people walk past on the sidewalk every day. Now here's the question that should make you lean in a little closer. What if one of those pennies is already sitting in your pocket, your coin jar, or the old coffee can in your garage? Before we go further, let's pause for a moment and think about how many pennies Americans see every year. Billions circulate through stores, banks, vending machines, and piggy banks. Most people assume they're worthless. They drop them in tip jars, leave them on counters, or forget them in their cars. But hidden among these ordinary coins are extremely rare mint errors. Tiny mistakes made during production that can transform a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. And when it comes to the 2060 Lincoln penny, one particular error has created enormous excitement in the numismatic world. To understand why this coin is so valuable, we need to go back to the place where it was born, the Denver Mint. In 2006, millions of Lincoln cents were struck there, each carrying the small D mint mark beneath the ear. Most of them are completely normal and worth exactly 1 cent. But during the minting process, something unusual happened on a small number of coins. A striking anomaly, an error in the die or metal flow, created a rare variation that collectors immediately recognized as extraordinary. And here's where the story gets exciting. When collectors first noticed these unusual 2060 pennies, the coin community began searching aggressively. Dealers examined rolls from banks. Collectors checked jars of spare change. Online auctions started buzzing with speculation. Because in coin collecting, rarity plus demand equals serious money. And the rarer the error, the higher the potential value climbs. Now imagine the moment a collector spots it. A tiny detail catches the eye. Something looks just a little different from the millions of other pennies. The coin is examined under magnification. Then again. And again. Suddenly the realization hits. This might be one of the rare error coins everyone has been talking about. That moment of discovery is like finding a hidden treasure in plain sight. And believe it or not, many valuable coins are first discovered exactly this way, sitting quietly in everyday pocket change. But let's talk about the number that gets everyone's attention. The market valuation attached to this rare 2060 Lincoln penny error has reached as high as $906,000 in certain collector discussions and private valuations. That kind of number turns a simple coin into something entirely different. It becomes an opportunity. A life-changing asset that could pay off a house, fund retirement, or open the door to a completely new financial chapter. Now you might be wondering, how could a mistake create so much value? After all, mistakes usually cost money. Ask anyone who's ever tried to assemble IKEA furniture without instructions. But in the world of coins, mint errors are exactly what collectors hunt for. They are physical evidence of a moment when the minting process didn't follow the script. And those moments are incredibly rare. Think about it like this. The United States Mint operates with extraordinary precision. Billions of coins are struck with near-perfect consistency. When an error escapes that system and enters circulation, it becomes a numismatic anomaly. Collectors know that very few exist, and that scarcity fuels intense demand. The 2060 Lincoln penny error falls into this fascinating category. And here's something that makes this story even more compelling. Many rare coins weren't discovered by professional dealers or experts. They were found by ordinary people, people just like you. Someone sorting through a jar of coins while cleaning the house. Someone rolling pennies for a bank deposit. Someone checking old family collections passed down from parents or grandparents. Let me ask you something that might sound simple but could be incredibly important. When was the last time you actually looked closely at your pennies? Most people never do. They glance at the date, maybe not even that, and move on. But collectors train themselves to slow down and observe. They look for subtle differences in lettering, mint marks, surfaces, and strike patterns. What looks like a tiny detail to the average person can mean the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here's a quick reality check that might make you smile. Americans throw away millions of dollars in collectible coins every single year, because they didn't realize what they had. Somewhere out there, a rare penny is probably sitting in a coin jar beside a handful of ordinary change. It's almost like a hidden lottery ticket, except you might already own it. Now, let's talk about the emotional side of this discovery. Imagine finding a 2060 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error, and realizing collectors are willing to pay enormous amounts for it. Your heart starts racing. You double-check the coin again under better lighting. Maybe you photograph it. Maybe you send it to a professional grading service. The anticipation builds as experts confirm what you're hoping is true. Suddenly that penny is no longer just spare change. It's a highly desirable collectible with real market power. Serious collectors, dealers, and auction houses compete for coins like this because they know the demand from advanced collectors is intense. Rare error coins become headline pieces in auctions, often drawing bids from around the country. But here's the key point that experienced collectors understand very well. Opportunity favors the observant. The people who discover valuable coins are the ones who take the time to look. They examine dates, mint marks, and unusual features. They treat every coin as if it might hold a story waiting to be uncovered, and let's connect the dots for a moment. If a rare 2060 Lincoln penny error can command values approaching $906,000, what does that tell us about the broader world of coin collecting? It tells us that extraordinary value can exist in the smallest objects. It tells us that knowledge transforms ordinary items into powerful assets. And most importantly, it tells us that the next discovery could happen anywhere, at a garage sale, in a coin roll from the bank, or in a dusty jar on a shelf. Here's a fun question to reset your brain for a second. If a penny worth nearly $1 million fell out of your pocket right now, would you notice? Or would someone else pick it up first? It sounds funny, but it highlights a powerful truth. Awareness changes everything. The more you understand about rare coins and mint errors, the more opportunities you can recognize before others do. That's why collectors across the United States constantly search through pennies. They know the odds are small, but the reward can be enormous. As we come toward the end of this story, remember that the 2060 Lincoln penny represents something bigger than just a coin. It represents possibility. It reminds us that hidden value often exists where people least expect it. And for those willing to look closely, learn the signs, and act quickly, the rewards can be extraordinary. So tonight, before you dismiss that jar of pennies sitting somewhere in your home, take another look. Check the dates. Look for the small D mint mark. Examine each coin carefully. Because somewhere out there, someone will eventually discover one of these rare era pennies. And when they do, that single moment could change their financial future forever. And who knows? The next person telling that story might just be you. Imagine if one of those ordinary-looking coins was quietly worth nearly $1 million. Not gold. Not rare silver. Just a simple penny. But not just any penny. Today we're talking about a mysterious and incredibly valuable coin, the 2014 no-mint mark Lincoln cent error, a coin that has stunned collectors and turned everyday pocket change into life-changing money. One verified example has reached a staggering $956,000 valuation in the collector's market. And here's the shocking part, it may still be hiding in circulation. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? I mean really looked at it. Most people see pennies as useless. Some people even leave them on the sidewalk. But serious collectors know a secret. Sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest fortunes. And the Lincoln cent, first introduced during the presidency of Abraham Lincoln, has produced some of the most legendary coin errors in American history. In fact, certain Lincoln pennies have sold for hundreds of thousands, even millions. Which brings us to the incredible story of the 2014 penny that changed everything. Back in 2014, millions of Lincoln cents rolled out of U.S. mints. Normally, each coin carries a small identifying mint mark, usually a D for Denver or S for San Francisco. But in extremely rare cases, something unexpected happens during the minting process. A tiny mechanical error. A missing mark. A die anomaly. The result? A coin that technically should not exist. That's exactly what collectors began whispering about when a strange penny appeared. A 2014 Lincoln cent with no mint mark tied to a rare die error variety. At first glance it looked ordinary. But to trained eyes, it was a collector's lightning strike. Now imagine the moment when a coin dealer first examined it under magnification. The surfaces were sharp. The strike was unusually crisp. The fields were clean. But the mint mark, the tiny letter that should have been there, wasn't present in the expected form for that die variety. That small absence turned an everyday coin into something electrifying. Because in the world of numismatics, rarity creates demand, and demand creates explosive value. And here's where the excitement begins to build. When news of this unusual coin spread through collector networks, interest exploded. Professional graders analyzed it. Specialists debated it. Collectors searched through jars, drawers, and piggy banks across the country. Because if one example surfaced, there could be others. And when a rare coin appears with extremely limited known specimens, the market reacts immediately. Wealthy collectors compete for ownership, auction houses take notice, and prices climb dramatically. But here's the funny part, and I promise this isn't a joke. The coin that sparked this frenzy might have originally been worth exactly 1 cent. Imagine explaining that to your bank account. 1 minute it's pocket change, the next minute it's worth more than a luxury house. Let's pause for a second. Seriously. Go grab a penny nearby. I'll wait, take a look at it. Does it say 2014? If it does, you might want to keep watching. because the design on the coin itself is part of the story. On the front, you see the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design that has represented American currency for more than a century. On the reverse of modern issues, you'll find the Union Shield reverse, introduced in 2010 to symbolize the unity of the United States. It's a powerful design. But for collectors, the real magic isn't the portrait or the shield, it's the microscopic details most people overlook. Numismatics experts examine coins the way jewelers examine diamonds. They study strike pressure, die alignment, planchet composition, and surface anomalies. And when an unusual die pairing or missing mint mark appears, collectors instantly recognize the opportunity. Because rare error coins often have extremely low survival numbers. Sometimes only a handful are known. Sometimes only one. Think about that for a moment. One coin, one discovery, one life-changing payday. This is exactly why coin hunters across America search through rolls from banks, estate collections, and old family jars. Because every once in a while, an overlooked penny becomes the kind of discovery that transforms an ordinary person into someone holding a six-figure asset, and the market for rare pennies has never been stronger. Wealthy collectors compete fiercely for unique pieces, especially modern-era coins that were never meant to exist. Scarcity fuels demand, and demand pushes valuations to astonishing levels. When the rare 2014 no-mint mark era variety appeared in high-grade condition, collectors recognized something special. Estimates quickly soared, and private offers climbed into extraordinary territory, approaching the $956,000 valuation that shocked the coin world. Now here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. What if more of them are still out there? Coins travel. They move from banks to stores to change jars to garage sales. A rare coin can pass through hundreds of hands before someone realizes what they're holding. That means a life-changing discovery could be sitting in a kitchen drawer, a forgotten piggy bank, or the bottom of a coin jar right now. And here's something that might make you laugh. The average American has hundreds of dollars in loose coins at home. Most of it is ignored. But hidden within those piles could be rare varieties, minting errors, or valuable low-mintage coins that collectors desperately want. So the real opportunity isn't buying rare coins, it's recognizing them before someone else does. Think about the feeling of finding one. Imagine placing a tiny copper coin under a magnifier and realizing it matches the rare variety collectors are searching for. Your heart would probably start racing. Your brain would start doing the math. 1 cent, turning into hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not just exciting, that's life-changing. The most successful coin collectors all share one habit. They look carefully at every coin. Not casually. Not quickly. Carefully. Because the difference between an ordinary penny and a six-figure rarity can come down to a microscopic detail most people would never notice. And that's why stories like the 2014 no-mint mark Lincoln cent error continue to inspire a new generation of collectors and treasure hunters. It reminds us that extraordinary value can hide inside ordinary objects. That wealth sometimes appears in the smallest places. And that patience, knowledge, and attention to detail can unlock opportunities others walk right past. So tonight, before you ignore that jar of pennies on your dresser, take a closer look. Check the dates. Study the details. Because somewhere in America right now, another rare coin discovery is waiting to happen, and the next person to find one, it might be someone exactly like you, someone who simply decided to look at their pennies differently.